we had tended to take, even after Eskom had announced what they are going to request as an increase in tariffs, is that we wait until NERSA pronounces on what the increases are being granted, because there is a lead time before we could present the forecast. You're basically faced with two choices. You either come up and say that I assume that they will get everything that they had been given and stick it into the model and then try and forecast that, or as you had said, well, okay, if they didn't get 30%, if they got 20%, what would it be? If we got 10%, what would it be? If we got 5%, what would it be? And then try to work out that. It becomes a little bit muddy. So what we tend to do is to provide a forecast that does not take account of that, and then we state that the forecast that we have does not take account of any increase that would be coming from electricity, and then we state it as a risk to the inflation outlook, so that the forecast that you present, you must understand, has got the risk that if the increases are granted, it would have the impact on inflation. There are some rules of thumb that we use in terms of the weight of electricity in the CPI basket, but that would tend to measure the direct effects. I think that the approach of the MPC had always been to see through these shocks of coming from the increases. The problem that we have now is that over the past 6 to 8 years, actually, these increases, you could have said they would be once off, but the way in which it is going now is that everybody now just tends to expect that the increases are going to take place. So we are looking at those hearings, and we hope that sanity will prevail in terms of the kinds of increases that will be granted, and taking into account the fact that prices, as they had been increasing, microeconomics has started to set in. The Marshallian scissors of demand and supply are taking effect, and I'm not sure that Eskom can continue to demand the kind of increases that they had asked for, because it has changed the relative prices in terms of energy, and has made alternative sources of energy more attractive. And you see it in the figures that besides the fact that we would say that we had had a weak economy, because we had had a weak economy, demand had fallen, we cannot lose sight of the fact that the increases in electricity prices over the years had actually changed the supply-demand dynamics, and as such, people's behavior had changed, and that people are starting to consume less electricity. South Africans love their houses, but they somehow seems to be living outside of their houses, and they love looking at the roofs of their houses. But over the past few years, you have seen it change. There are a lot of houses with solar panels, which then begins to say to you that the payback time for those solar panels had changed, that people are finding it attractive to have those panels as a source of energy than relying completely on the grid. Steinhoff, how do we think about Steinhoff? Francha, can you think about Steinhoff whilst I deal with the other questions? Or think about what you want to take from Steinhoff. Eric, the GDP figures, how much are they influenced by the politics? Well, I guess then we can also ask how much of the inflation is influenced by politics, because why would the politicians want to manipulate GDP figures and not manipulate the inflation figures? No, the Statistics Act in South Africa is actually pretty stringent and gives the Statistician General far-reaching powers, not just to go out and collect data, that if he is looking for data from you and you can't provide that, you could face significant fines and even imprisonment. But also calls on the Statistician General to act independently. More importantly is that South Africa is a signatory to a number of international statistical standards that we have got to apply, including the SNA. But also more importantly is that South Africa is a subscriber to the SDGs, that is the Special Data Dissemination Standard, which is assessed on a regular basis for compliance, which includes having a pre-announced calendar and sticking to that calendar and so forth. And yes, we have a different statistician general, and I think that the previous one made sure that he put on a yellow jacket such that no one would come anywhere close to him and push him to manipulate the statistics. So the quality of the statistical service in South Africa is actually very high. And if there are to be any question marks about the statistics, it would not be because the statistics are manipulated by politicians or are being produced for political gain. I mean, you mentioned GDP. I mean, if anything, politicians would have also preferred to see that poverty had come down, and Statistics South Africa comes and says, look at how high poverty is, look at how high unemployment is. If the statistics were being manipulated, you could imagine in which direction you could have done that.